Hi, everyone. I'm Jess, and I'm the content manager here at Course Report. Course Report is the resource for helping people find the right coding bootcamp for them. You can use the Course Report website to research the best coding and digital skills bootcamps from all over the world, as well as insights on how to fund your very own bootcamp experience. Today, I'm speaking with three Flatiron School alumni who are part of the winning team of Flatiron's recent Hackonomics hackathon. So let me introduce them. Logan Lampton is a full stack developer. Sheena Sang is also a full stack developer. And Matthew Thomas Wicker is a product designer. So Sheena, Logan, and Matthew, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Before I have you share your screen so we can dive into what you built for that hackathon, I'd love to know a bit about your backgrounds and why you ended up choosing Flatiron School. So Sheena, you have a degree in English, and I'd love to know what inspired you to enroll in the software engineering bootcamp at Flatiron in 2022.
Well, it actually started all the way back in 2020. I was actually teaching English in Japan during COVID, but I was able to work with some really amazing people, one of which actually began their own tech career with, during that time by attending a coding boot camp as well. So, what essentially inspired me to take the Flatiron course after I came back to the States was seeing how someone else with a similar background got into tech, no previous knowledge or experience, and they built a web application for English speaking expats who were actually living in Japan that had no way of receiving information about getting vaccinated in their particular province in English. So I actually used her application to help me get my own vaccination while I was there. And she ended up getting a lot of help from other major developers, from Google, from Facebook, because they saw how important this application was in order to help expedite that MVP. It ended up being on the Japan Times, which is an English speaking magazine. So seeing how that application really made that huge impact for our community within, like, while living in Japan, really inspired me to want to do something very similar. So when I finally made it back to the States, I did my own research. I found Flatiron and really liked what they had to offer. So that was me getting really into it at that time.
That's so cool. I love that. And Matt, why did you decide to get into UX design and product design back in 2020?
Yeah, so I was a poli sci major. I moved to DC. I was thinking about going to law school. So I was like going down that path for a few years. And I realized at the very end that it wasn't for me. I had a buddy who had recently switched careers. He went to Flatiron before it was Flatiron. It was called Designation. And he had nothing but great things to say about the boot camp. So I did some research. I took my own UX course online, really low risk at that point. And I loved it. So I decided to just kind of dive in. I quit my job and I moved to Chicago for like a fully immersive program.
Wow. Yeah, you did the full commitment. You even did the move. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
And Logan, there are so many coding boot camps out there. And I'd just love to know, like, what set Flatiron School apart from the rest of them?
Yeah, well, for me, I actually have had good friends that have gone to various boot camps. So I'm not going to speak bad about any of them, but I had some really good friends that went to Flatiron and really liked it. And what kind of sealed it for me was I even went to my friends who went to other places, like, well, what do you think of this place? Like, you went somewhere else, and they were like, oh, Flatiron's really good. Like, it's got a lot of credibility and prestige. So like, it really, even to the people who didn't go there who I ran it by because I'm lucky enough to have a lot of other friends that went through this experience before me. They were like, no, if you go there, you'll be in good hands. So that kind of was what sealed the deal for me.
Yeah, that's always good to hear about a boot camp. Sheena, when you knew you wanted to get into Flatiron, did you have to learn how to code at all before applying?
Yeah, so the great thing about Flatiron is that, and this was actually during my research, was that they offered this kind of pre-work that you had to complete before even starting it from day one to kind of give you, like, basically a head start, a quick understanding of the basics, so that you weren't lost on day one. it's just, understanding the terminology, understanding what like arrays were, how to loop through it, even how to create or initialize a variable, all that kind of terminology and basic verbiage. If you knew that before day one, you were better off than someone who just kind of skimmed through it. As we saw quite a few times. So I would say it's very similar to like learning a new language. If you're landing in a country that only speaks that language and you know not a single word, you end up going to that country not knowing a single word, you're going to be so lost, so confused, and really frustrated. So yeah, the pre-work that Flatiron offered really, really helped me in the long run. So.
And how long did you end up having to dedicate to that pre-work? Just like a couple weeks before the boot camp?
It actually, because it was, because I had applied probably a month or so, they had a lot of starting times. I gave myself essentially a month of time to get the pre-work done. I once suggested, yeah, I can complete this pre-work in 2 weeks, not a big deal. And they're like, you may want to rethink that. So I was like, all right, okay, I'll give myself a month. And within that month, yeah, I kind of struggled with it, but during that first week, as you start, you start to connect the dots and you're like, oh, that's why we do it that way. So, yeah.
And Logan, you were in the bootcamp in 2022. What were some of like the main programming languages or skills that you were learning in the software engineering bootcamp?
Yeah, so we were learning JavaScript and the React framework with that. It did actually change from what they were teaching us at the time. Like before, we were doing Ruby and Ruby on Rails, and now they actually teach Python and Python Flask, which is what our project was actually in, because everybody was at least somewhat familiar with that. But yeah, we were learning that. Of course, we were learning all of the basic core concepts that Sheena was just talking about, as the majority of people are quite new to it. Yeah, we were learning those. We also learned SQL, and since we were running on Ruby on Rails, we kind of did the in between with SQL and Rails, where we worked a little with Sinatra as well. But a lot of really fun stuff that, if you have that knowledge, you can start building a lot of things.
And Matt, what were some of the things that you picked up in the UX design bootcamp in 2020?
A lot of things. So, we work on these smaller teams, people from different backgrounds. So first of all, you have to learn to work with all different sorts of people, which is crucial in this career. We got to work on many different projects together. I think we built about 4 projects throughout my time at Flatiron. Many of those projects you're able to put on your portfolio, which is like one of the most important things coming out of there when you're in your job search. So it was really helpful to have culminated all of those artifacts while I was there at Flatiron.
So your team's project was chosen as the winner of Flatiron School's Hackonomics hackathon. Congrats on that. Before we dive into the screen share, I'd love to know what inspired you to come back into Flatiron School and participate in the Hackonomics hackathon. Logan, let's start with you.
Thanks. Yeah, I like to be part of the tech community as much as possible. Especially, I live in New York, so trying to do that. Like I'm actually going to an event at the Flatiron New York campus tonight. So try to, not be a stranger to that. Yeah, I wanted to, learn some new tech stacks that I hadn't done as much. Like I hadn't done as much work with Python Flask, and I knew there were some experts from Flatiron working on that. I had not had, as much experience with UI design. We have experts like, Matt. So I just wanted to get to work with some awesome collaborative people to make a really cool project that we could, show off to our friends and family and learn some stuff along the way. And I think it definitely fit that bill.
And Sheena, what about you?
Well, this is actually my second hackathon for Flatiron, but I've done a couple of other hackathons outside of Flatiron. And every single time I complete a hackathon, It's usually really stressful, and it's an incredibly collaborative experience, but the payout at the end is what's really worth it. I get a really awesome project that, again, like Logan said, I can add on to my resume. I become a bit more fluent in the way that I speak about the technology and the way that I speak about how my application works and so on and so forth. And it just really impresses the employers, or like in the networking that I do, because I do a lot of networking, similar to what Logan is. Like, I'm always in the tech crowds, trying to say hi, trying to make connections. So having those kinds of projects and experiences to be able to talk about them is really, really important, I think, for me. So I really just love all of the aspects of it, especially the collaborative. You get to learn so much from other people that know more than you do, or that know a different way of doing things. So I really enjoyed that. So.
And Matt, what was your inspiration for coming back into this hackathon?
So yeah, a lot of my reasons are very similar to Sheena and Logan's. Love building things outside of my day job, keeps the creative juices flowing. It's also a great idea to learn how to collaborate with all different sorts of people. Also, one of the biggest things from this hackathon was, the fact that you're able to come out of this with something to add to your portfolio. In like this competitive job market, it's getting more increasingly difficult to find jobs, and having your portfolio up to date with some new technologies, some new projects that you've worked on is really key to staying competitive in like the job market.
And with that, let's have one of you share your screen so we can check out what you built. So this hackathon was unique because all the teams participating were recent Flatiron grads working on projects related to AI and personal finance. So Matt, what was the overall goal of your project? And like, how did your team decide to go in the direction that it did?
So we were given a project brief, which, we had our user goals, we had our user personas. We analyzed those and we came up with this app. We were tasked with building an AI platform that was able to help users track their finances and plan for the future. We had a little more specifics in that project brief, but this is what we were able to come up with.
And Sheena, how much time were you given to build the project? Like, how many hours a day or a week were you committing?
So each team essentially had 19 days to get to their MVP, and that would include like all the planning, the alignment meetings, setup, more alignment meetings, coding, and also working together to debug. So I'd say a lot of us put in a decent amount of hours to this on a daily basis. Though of course, a few of us had, other responsibilities outside of the hackathon to attend to. But I would say an average of like 4 to 6 hours a day. But towards the crunch time, towards the end, we probably put in way more than that.
So Logan, can you kind of walk us through like the main features or how a user would interact with the Ctrl Alt Defeat Debt app that you built?
Yeah, absolutely. We do, of course, have a login with two-factor authentication, all that stuff, but we didn't want to bore you with that. So this is once the user's logged in. We designed this. It does, of course, work on a computer, but we designed it to work for mobile in the way that it's rendered and everything, and to be handy. You can kind of scroll around on it. But yeah, so once you get to the home page here, which you can always navigate to back with this nice logo that Mal designed, you get told good whatever time of day it is, wherever you're located, and it tells you how much you have spent that month. It of course, is connected to whatever bank accounts you tell it to connect with. And this dummy account, they happen to be doing pretty well, I guess, with the amount of money they have, since they've spent quite a bit and still have quite a bit saved left. This shows how much they've spent, it based on what's in their account, shown here visually. So they were spending here, they must have gotten paid, so it went down, because once full, of course, they no longer are able to spend anything more. So it shows like how they're doing, if they're on track to meet all of the financial goals that they have set. And of course, we can kind of look a little bit more into the spending page. There's a snapshot, very cool graph of what they've actually spent, like a breakdown of how they've been spending their money. Their like monthly cash flow. This shows how much they will have earned this month. This is how much they've already spent. So that's how much they have left to go. We can also see like based on categories, like how much they've spent, and also like their forecast for what they need to spend in the future. So it's like based on what they've already paid, our AI, which we're using OpenAI, is actually forecasting how much they're going to have to spend in the future based on what they have been spending in the past. So it's very cool. Like you can of course see your bank statement like you normally could, what you spend things on. But if we navigate back to home, we can look at a little bit more of the details on here. People can create goals. These are some of the goals that they have already created. And this is just the user saying, oh, I would, what are some things you would like to save money for? So we can help you to save money, both with showing in an easy way, like to track it, and more importantly, use AI to help you to better save goal for your goal. So we can say, I want to create an emergency account. At this point, the user can say they want it to be a personal goal, or they could make it a group goal. So they share it with some other people. They invite them to their goal through the app, and they can, then add to it together. So let's say they want to save $5,000 for their emergency. And then we can say a specific date that they might want to save that by. So let's say they want to save it by, the end of June. We can say next. Do you want to add someone else to the goal? Say no. So then it would have created this goal for them, and it helps them to save their money. You can, of course, say like you're adding money to it, so your balance gets closer to full. And when you go back to the home page, of course, it'll be updating that. All right, great. And we also have some financial insights that it shows directly from the AI. So this is just saying, okay, some of the things that you spent, looking at what you spent during the past month, you could consider reducing your dining out expenses by cooking at home more often. Last month, it looks like they spent about $90 on restaurants. Not too bad, but it could be improved even more, depending on what they were doing. So this is also just looking at whatever information we actually put in for that dummy user. So, it'd be obviously catered to the individual. So if it'll tell like some different advice on ways that people could better save money, like some automatic transfers from their checking account to savings account to ensure savings each month. Yeah, all of this stuff is like directly from the AI, which I'm sure Sheena will talk a little bit more about how she more fine-tuned it. But yeah, these are all things that were generated by the AI just based on our queries to it. So it wasn't like we were saying, oh, depending on if they like are spending a lot on transportation, like give it a message like this. No, this is like something that the AI created on its own. So it's pretty cool that we were able to harness it in such a way. Users can, of course, like look at how their goals are going. They've got their personal goals up here, showing like how much they've saved up for that. It's got their group goals if they have any of those. And again, you'll of course have like the money to reflect, what you have as an individual. And we did start to look a little bit at some of the insights. This is actually, every time we load it up here, it's actually creating some more AI insights, and also looking through and reevaluating the forecasted spending if there were like any more things that went through. And so it looks like there might have actually been another purchase since we're in here, because we have this linked up to Plaid dummy bank data. So it just gradually keeps adding more and more purchases and things that they've earned. So might have actually added something in while we were talking. And then of course, like this just kind of shows the accounts that the user has been connected to. And yeah, that's like a general overview of what we have. It gives users like a look at what they're spending. It gives them some generalized AI insights. It also gives them insights like specific to their goals that they're working on. And then also has an overview of what they've been spending, making sure they're staying on track, and then giving them a forecast of what we anticipate, or what the AI anticipates they'll need to spend in the future based on what they've spent recently.
So Sheena, with like what were some of the main like programming languages or tools that your team really leaned on to build this out, and like also how does it incorporate AI?
So we used JavaScript with a React framework to build this out. Of course, we made it look like it was in a like a mobile application, but it's technically a web application. And we also used Python and Flask for the back end, and SQL Alchemy for our little database. With the AI, we used OpenAI's API. And again, as Logan mentioned, we used Plaid for the dummy bank information. We were able to connect with Plaid. That provided us a lot of transactions that we could play around with and feed to the AI. We also used Twilio for our two-factor authentication. So during login, it asks you for a phone number to enter into, and then it will send you a text message, which you then need to add in the code from that text message in order to be authenticated. And then it also walks you through the Plaid account setup kind of thing, where you have to connect your bank account. So with Plaid, it has this onboarding process to connect your bank account. We had a dummy API that we used in order to facilitate a lot of this information. So the way in which we used the AI was to basically feed it to that banking information from Plaid, specifically the transactions from a certain time period. So we chose 30 days. And then from there, we told the model to then analyze those transactions based on the categories and the amounts spent within those categories, in order to provide predictions for those spending habits. So you see here, Logan's pulling up the API backend. So you'll see at the top where the configuration is, we are grabbing we're trying to get the information from the Plaid API. We need specifically an access token that is given for each transactions, which is on line 46. But you'll see between line 37 and 43, those are the prompts that we're basically kind of trying to, in a sense, fine tune our model, telling it exactly what it is. You are specifically a helpful financial analyst, AI assistant that specializes in personal finance, designed to output in JSON, right? And then we specifically ask for a response, like we format the response a certain way so that the front end can pull from that information, as well as, so we have two separate ones, one for the savings, and then one for insights, which is the predictions that Logan had shown earlier with the graphs and so on and so forth to predict how you're going to be spending a month from now into the future. And then the savings example is providing recommendations as to how best to save towards your goal that you had put into the application. And so, we also, with those recommendations, we have like those two different models. So I think if you scroll down here, yeah, so we're grabbing the Plaid transactions and then we send it into the AI. So it was a lot of information. Luckily with the Plaid API, it wasn't that expensive if you use a certain model, which is the GPT 3.5 model that we used. And giving it all of that information, we were able to then tell it, hey, I would need you to give this response. We need a couple of these recommendations. This is how I want the recommendations to kind of sound like. And so we were able to get those for the savings goals and then the predictions and insights for the future. So if you spend, it looks at all of the transactions, and so if you spend, say, I don't know, $100 in subscription services, it will then tell you, hey, maybe you need to review your subscription services and probably try and cancel them if you're no longer using them. Or if you spend a lot on a certain car insurance, it will suggest maybe look into cheaper car insurance, because sometimes you don't think of renewing your car insurance or looking for other ones that are providing other options. So it will kind of hint and help you save in that aspect.
And there were developers, a designer, and a data scientist on this team. Matt, how did everyone work together and like equally contribute to the project when you were doing it in such a short span of time?
Yeah, so on that first day, we all have different strengths and weaknesses. So we sort of worked together, talked, divvied up the work that kind of aligned to our strengths. And from there, we were able to build out a framework that sort of worked for the rest of the project, building out that timeline to ensure that we met, deadlines that we've set for ourselves. But I think that first day was crucial in kind of identifying like where everyone would be able to chip in and provide like the most value for the team.
Matt, since you've been working in product design for a few years now, did you feel like you learned anything new by working on this hackathon project?
Yeah, so getting to work with data scientists, engineers, it's a great experience for the field that I'm in. But also, I got to learn a lot about AI, which is like sparked new interest in like things I want to do outside of my day job. So I like to code in my free time. So now, thanks to Sheena, Logan, and the rest of my team, I definitely want to dabble some more in AI using the Open AI API and like various other technologies that we were able to use during the time together.
So, Logan, what kinds of resources did your team have if you got stuck? Like, was Flatiron there to provide support, or did you really like lean on each other?
So Flatiron gave us some nice like design documents to get us started. Like here's like potentially what your like user interface could look like, or at least some kinds of like design stuff we could use. We actually, since we had such a nice designer, made all of our own, but it was nice to have that. They gave us about like an intro, maybe hour conversation about like this is what we're looking for. So I mean those things all help a lot. But we were mostly on our own. We did lean really heavily on each other. Which, as Matt said, it was great that we have so many different, skill sets, so we could use those things to help each other out. While working with AI, it's nice to ask AI about itself. That could be helpful too. And of course, we had all the design documentation for like using OpenAI or Plaid or whatever technology we were using. So that was also super helpful. But we definitely would like get on conversations with each other and say, hey, I'm working on this right now. I have these questions. Can you help me out with it? Like we definitely helped each other a lot.
Yeah, and what's next for Ctrl Alt Defeat Debt, the app? Are you and your team like going to still continue working on this, or was this just like a hackathon project only?
While it is a hackathon project, it is always, close to our hearts. We have, worked on iterating on it a little bit already since the hackathon is concluded. Our goal is to iron out just the last few things and then deploy it so that it lives in posterity on the web. And we can say we actually built a living, great app. So that's what's next for it.
And Sheena, what kind of impact do you believe this hackathon is going to have on your tech career?
Well, I mean, I have an amazing project to show for it. It really gave me, I think this opportunity really gave me the ability to dive deep into like an application using AI in a real world project. So, I mean, there are applications out there, a lot of finance applications out there, but how are those finance applications really utilizing and leveraging AI to really enhance that user experience is, it stands out on its own out there in this field that, basically every single application you see there, everyone's trying to get the AI in there. So now that I have a bit more on it, now that I have a bit more knowledge on it, on how to build it, it's given me a lot of confidence to talk about it and, really show my passion to prospective employers, um, because it really does come through at networking events. So it's also helped me land a couple of freelance contracts. Just saying that I worked with AI alone before, like, yeah, I have touched on OpenAI. I've built this. Look at what I was able to do. So it really impresses upon people if you have that under your belt.
That's awesome. So I'd love to know at this point in your tech careers, was Flatiron School worth it for you?
100%. For me, I mean, I've had a couple of ups and downs since I graduated Flatiron. I mean, with the job market the way it is and graduating right as AI hit the mainstream, I know a lot of folks out there have been really impacted with AI. And even though I've been working with AI, I'm still pretty hopeful that it's not going to do away with our jobs. But as a career transitioner, it's essentially opened up my skill set. I mean, 1,000-fold. I mean, coming from working as an English teacher in Japan, and then coming into tech, and also being a program manager before all of that. It's even if tech doesn't end up working out for me, I've been seeing a lot of tech adjacent roles that have really been showing up a lot in my feeds. I mean, I actually just got accepted as a program coordinator for a summer program for high school students to learn web development. So it's along the lines of what I'm sincerely passionate about, giving back to my community. It incorporates my tech skill set because I understand the language, and so I can probably speak to the tech instructors as well as being able to manage students,
Yeah.
which I also have experience in. So having that has really helped me land this opportunity. So I thank Flatiron for that. I mean, without it, I don't think I would have been able to, walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yeah, it's definitely been helpful to me. I mean, I did like the intensive in person, so it's a something like that is a really nice way to just force yourself to really learn a lot right away because it can be hard to get through that much material otherwise. You're like, oh, do I really want to work on this for like 9, 10 hours today? But it gives you a fun way to do it with a lot of other students who are going through the same thing as you, and you have a lot more support. And the community doesn't just like stop. Like I did this hackathon, and I didn't like just graduate, but I mean it's been pretty recent. I am I help co-organize a mixer for tech professionals in New York, and Flatiron wanted to work with us, so we're doing that at Flatiron tonight. So it's not like they don't try to foster a really nice community. So it's been very helpful just for helping to kickstart my knowledge and also to really have more of a sense of community.
And that's an excellent place to wrap up this Hackonomics project spotlight. We're going to be posting a recording and a transcript of this video interview on the course report blog with contact information for Flatiron School, just in case you're interested in applying for one of their upcoming, either their online or their in-person cohorts. And thanks so much to all of you for watching. You can tweet at us, email us, and let us know which topic you'd like us to cover next on the course report blog. And in the meantime, follow Course Report on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And if you're a bootcamp alum, don't forget to post a review of your bootcamp experience on Course Report. Your review is a huge help to anyone who's thinking of getting into tech today.